Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality podcast, is brought to you by eMenu Choice Point of Sale and Clark Pro. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. On this episode of Tips from Trestle, I'm sharing an amazing conversation I had on my August Cocktails and Conversations with the Florida Senior Living Association and Georgia Senior Living Association. We do this Cocktails and Conversations event pretty much once a month, and we have some really great speakers, some really great conversations. But this one was amazing, and I just had to share it with all of my listeners. So I'm going to be featuring a conversation I had with Damon Thomas. Damon is the Senior Vice President of Operations for Providence Senior Living. He and I have known each other for just over 3 years. We go back to our time as new Bridge the Gap podcast ambassadors. And even today, we're working together as industry partners. So this was a really great conversation about understanding what it takes to be successful in a leadership role as a regional operator in senior living. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I'll invite you to join us on upcoming Cocktails and Conversation events. So be on the lookout for that on LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. So enjoy this conversation with Damon Thomas. Well, let's jump into our conversation. I want to welcome Damon Thomas. Damon and I met 2 or 3 years ago as I was starting my company at Bridge the Gap Ambassadors. We met there and got to know each other and started talking about the industry and how we want to approach things and how we think things should be done. And we've been really good friends and industry partners since then. So, Damon, welcome.
Thanks a lot. Glad to be here as always.
So let's dive in. I want to pick your brain a little bit about your journey. We're talking about success story as an operator, and there's so many ways that we can go about doing that. But I'd love for you to start with kind of your early beginnings in the industry. What brought you into senior living, and certainly experiences, what were they like to keep you in the industry and want to continue doing what we do?
Well, my dad, I think I saw my dad on here, so this will hit home with dad, is that early on, I was going to college, and I chose the college that I chose because it was near my grandparents, and both sets of grandparents were in Middleborough, Massachusetts. I went to the Harvard of Massachusetts, a little school called the Bridgewater State College in Bridgewater, Mass. And it was really everything that you want a college experience to be. And it certainly was that much better because my grandparents were close by. Having that been said, early on in one of my times having lunch at my grandparents on the Thomas side, I'd stop by often, like most college kids do, right, to get their laundry done or to get their bellies full. And in one particular time, and I'll try not to get upset because at times I have a tendency to, this story always gets me, but my grandfather, Thomas, was 65 years old, 66 years old, and he's at one side of the table, I'm at the other. Picture Archie Bunker's the kitchen there. And my grandmother, Thomas, is running around serving my granddad and myself because she was such a giver. Kate Thomas, just the best in the world. Anyway, just a typical meal, lunch, or whatever. Great time, great conversation. And then all of a sudden I noticed that my grandfather, this guy's about 6'4", 250, big giant of a man. and he was eating peas, and his hand was shaking, had this tremor going, and the peas were going all over the place. Threw his fork on the plate, tried to get up because he was upset and he wanted to leave the kitchen, stumbled in doing so, and this will mean a lot to you on this call, and had a shuffle gait as he shuffled out of the kitchen. So then I knew something was wrong, and what we all know now is he had early onset Parkinson's. And so I saw a lot of things that I liked about what happened to my grandfather in his care, and I saw a lot of things that I didn't like. But I will tell you that what I learned is that from that I knew that I needed to make a difference in the lives of seniors because of some of those things that I saw. I think what drove me was with the things that I didn't like, and I knew that I could make a difference on the quality of care. I knew that I loved seniors, so that I knew I could bring a level of compassionate leadership to senior living. And so those that early experience really hit home. And then when I started getting in hands-on roles, I was a PTA, physical therapy assistant, down in Anderson, South Carolina, with a gentleman who I'll name later in the podcast. And we were providing a lot of hands-on care. And during that, I learned about, each resident, and fostering a culture of care, delivering great outcomes through therapy. And then as I grew on, I just approached everything about continuous improvement, about quality of care. And so really, to answer your question, Aaron, it all started with my grandfather. It all started with what care was all about, what it should look like. And I've been doing it ever since.
Those are the stories, right? There's probably 60% of the people on this call that would have a story very similar, or have the other one, which is like mine, which is I fell into the industry. And so thinking back, we want to talk about the leadership journey, right? Because when everybody is here, kind of taking away, what things did you experience along your kind of early career journey that developed your leadership style, your operational philosophy? How did that, like you mentioned, those hands-on role early in your career help you develop your leadership style that you're using now?
Well, the journey was along a lot of different companies, predominantly Emeritus in Brookdale at the beginning, probably about 16 to 20 years of that experience. And that's what really helped form who I am today in regards to leadership style and operational philosophy. But I learned one of the first things I learned out of the gate with Emeritus Senior Living was I learned that you've got to be adaptable, how to change. And that was important. I learned a lot of about that adaptability, that, change very quickly. And then as I navigated in my roles further down along my career through stabilized and startup environments with Vitality Living and Validus Senior Living, I learned it even further how important it is to always be ready to change. But these experiences, they helped me learn the necessity of balancing strategic oversight with hands-on involvement, right? It's all about management by walking around and ensuring that every community I manage operates with a deep commitment to quality and resident well-being, like I was talking about earlier, why I got involved. And Providence Senior Living, where I currently serve as the senior vice president, my leadership, I would like to say, has matured into a role that prioritizes not only operational excellence, right, but also the cultivation of how important a positive work environment is. And that it's huge. And so my operational philosophy is centered around strategic initiatives, accountability, and basically the unwavering belief that the best outcomes are achieved through collaboration and a shared commitment to making sure that we're providing betterment for our residents. And at Providence Senior Living, our motto is creating the best day. So it's all about activity, the ability to change, and just overall adaptability.
I think that's so important that you lay out the growth, right? Because I think as we move up in leadership, we've all experienced those leaders that haven't. They learn bad habits. They had a bad leader here or there that taught them things to do, and they didn't have that right focus. That if we take care of our residents, the bottom line will take care of itself, I think, for sure. So, and kind of in that vein, mentorship is something that I think our industry could do a much better job of. There's so many great people doing what you do, doing what we all do. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about some of the mentors that you worked with and how they set you up to be successful where you're at with Providence right now. Because I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning. When you started at Providence, it was, here are the keys to the building, then good luck.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can respect the amount of work that it takes to take all that on. And so I'd love for you to talk about mentors that you worked with that help you get prepared for that kind of a task.
Yeah. Well, I get this question a lot. So let me throw out this warning that if I forget someone, it's not because you're not important to me or my career. It's because I really have been blessed to have some of the best leaders throughout my senior living journey. And I was talking to a colleague about this as recently as yesterday, because in the 80s, we had some great folks, just some that laid a super foundation for me. And a lot of them are on this, well, not a lot of them, some of them are on this call as we speak. So again, if I miss you, I apologize. It's certainly not on purpose, but Linnell Lawson, Suzette McCandless, and Mary Sue Patchy. You may know Mary Sue. They were pivotal in my early career. They taught me about nurturing relationships. They taught me about staying grounded, which is very hard for anyone who knows me. They taught me about leading at a personal level and ensuring that every decision that we make, making sure that it's all about the commitment. Back in the days with Emeritus, we used to say a commitment to those who we serve. So that's our residents and that's our staff. So, oh my goodness, they paved the way. There's two gentlemen that I always will talk about a lot, Chris Hyatt, Chris Gay. Those guys helped me with strategic vision and innovation. I still talk to them. If it isn't monthly, it's certainly quarterly. Those guys really helped me balance that operational excellence and then always that need for continuous improvement. Love those guys to death. Dan Beatty and Granger Cobb. Granger passed a number of years, but anyone who knows Granger, his impact is still with us today. Those guys taught me about the bigger picture of senior living, how to really think about thinking strategically, anticipate challenges, because there's going to be challenges every day, right?
Mhm.
And then being resilient and always coming back for more. So blessed to have those guys. Another guy who's I think is on this call, I think I saw him earlier, Chad Carnes, Chris Belford, Jeff Fisher, and I want to throw this one out too, because I guess he got promoted. I learned this today, but Chris Bird, all those guys have been, they helped me bring a level of passion and dedication to the role. They inspired me. They have a continuous drive and energy. Those guys, they really helped me develop. And then John Cicada, some of you may or may not remember John back in the Emeritus days. He was my sales mentor. Unbelievable with that. I mean, seriously, we're talking 30 years down the road here, and I'm still spitting out John Cicada isms. And then lastly, Aaron, and a lot of you who are on this call today can appreciate Mr. Tom Green and Michelle Pierce, who are currently my mentors, my CEO and my COO. Every day I'm learning from them. And they taught me to be clear or the best I can with my communication and take decisive action, which is, those are decisive action is not my strong point. The clear communication, my wife makes fun of because I repeat myself continuously, but I do so to make sure that we're on the same page. So, Aaron, I really could go this whole day talking about mentors. And so I'm really blessed that I had those folks to help me. I really am.
Well, and one of the reasons I asked about that is because hearing that list of people, there are so many different philosophies and approaches and ideas and all towards a similar purpose, right? But, there's like 37 different roads to get to the same goal. And so when you think about how you synthesize all that information, what are some of the key strategies, if you will, that you've developed that you use in your day to day now as a regional operator with a smaller portfolio, but really tight knit group to make sure that you've got high standards in place, that you're making sure care is happening the right way. And then obviously we can't do what we do unless the numbers all are working. So love for you to talk about how those mentors helped you form some key strategies that everybody that's here today can maybe repurpose and use themselves.
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing, and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
Yeah, great question. So the first one, right? And I think I don't know if you all saw the same article I did, but there was Tom Brady just had an article in the Harvard Business Review about managing teams, and it came out yesterday. And so I think you hear about that all the time, right? So one of the key strategies is you have to be able to manage teams. Some days are great, some days aren't so great, but you better be able to manage teams. And so that takes empowering leadership. This isn't an area, Aaron, that I don't know if I excel at, but I like to empower my folks. I like to give them the autonomy, and you have to be careful, right? Because you can't give your folks too much, or they're gonna run amok, and then you can't give them. It has to be very well balanced. So ensuring that they have the tools, the training, then with that you can give them the autonomy to make the right decisions. So shares that managing teams. Empowering leadership's key. I talked about clear communication earlier, and just repeating, but making sure that everyone's on the same page, making sure that they truly understand what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
That the continuous training, the development, and then lastly, I think I don't think as far as managing teams, I don't know if it's any more pertinent now or whatever, because we also went through the COVID days, whatever, but wouldn't you agree that fostering a positive culture is tremendously huge in building the team as well? So those are key in regards to managing teams, that empowering leadership, the clear communication, your training, your development, and then making sure while you're doing all that, trying to keep it as rainbows and unicorns as positive as you can.
Yeah.
So that's management, the teams, but then after you're done with that, if everything's going well there, you got to make sure to have that high standard of care. And I think we'd agree is the regulations in our surveyors, with our surveyors, God bless them, but every day they seem to have a new flavor of the month and whatnot. So when you talk about standards of care, you got to be on top of your game. And so we hear it a lot about resident centric or resident focused. Whether or not we're all practicing is another thing. But what we do at Providence is we're prioritizing that personalized care plan, making sure that we're really developing what we do around our residents and being compliant with the regulations at the same time, right? So that's that balancing act. Quality, commitment, or CQI, we're all over continuously looking to make sure that we're better. Interdisciplinary communication, right? It's not important that we just know that our director of wellness or our nurses or our med techs or whatnot are aware of our residents' care. it's just as important that that dishwasher knows about Ms. Thomas. And what we find, and we've all found this, right? That that housekeeper brought something unbelievable to that care plan that we didn't even know or whatever. So that interdisciplinary collaboration is huge as well. And then about compliance and, compliance is being proactive, not reactive, right? We don't just take a look at where we're at around because your biannual's coming up. It's a constant commitment to really looking for the care. So then once you get all that stuff going and you think you're just, life's just wonderful, then you get on a call with whether you're dealing with the private equity, whether you're dealing with REITs or whatever you're dealing with, there's always that meeting the financial goals of your leaders, your stakeholders, or whoever you're reporting to that particular day, management companies. So then we're talking about being strategic in our budgeting, our forecasting, controlling our costs, right? And you got to do it with compromise sometimes because what we want to do doesn't always align with the budget. So if we give a little bit here, we might have to take a little bit there. So that's important. And then the other two things, I guess, when it comes to managing the financial aspect of our business is you got to diversify your portfolio. You got to diversify your communities. If you're only looking at one side of the business, whether it be rate or level of care, you forgot about these other revenue streams over here. You got to constantly look to diversify, or what's going to happen is you're going to reach that ceiling of revenue. You're not going to be able to move your margin. And then lastly, Aaron, I think the big key, the strategy moving forward, you see a lot of this now. Everyone talks about data-driven decision making. Are we monitoring our financial performance? Are we monitoring or paying attention to the right KPIs and what's moving things? So I would say that's key as well. Does that answer?
Yeah, no, there's a lot there. So I want to ask you kind of one or two questions that are similar-ish in vein. So I want to talk a little bit about industry advocacy, right? So you've been working as a board member of Florida Senior Living Association for the last 10 years. And so how's that advocacy and supporting the association and supporting other groups, how can that influence what you're doing in your role currently as an executive at a smaller operator?
Well, first of all, I gotta put out that shameless plug, right? I absolutely love Florida Senior Living Association. Anyone who doesn't know that doesn't know me. But over the past decade, the association has really shaped my approach as vice president because my advocacy work that we've done together, it gives me a broader perspective on the challenges and the opportunities within our industry, right? And it's allowed me to be part of the conversation. We walked the halls together. We've shaped policy and some of the best practices in the field. So that's one of the ways they help. But through my work with the association, we've got the opportunity with legislative days to engage with the legislators, the regulators, and then the other industry leaders. And we're always advocating for the needs and everything for our seniors. So this advocacy really helped me in sharpening my game to ensure that our operations not only comply with the regulations, but I'm also anticipating the future changes in our industry. So I really can't talk about the Florida Senior Living Association enough and what they've done, but they've deepened my commitment to elevating the standards of what we do across the board. And it's not about just meeting minimum requirements, right? It's about striving for excellence. It's about pushing for the policies that really truly enhance the quality of life for our residents. And I couldn't be more proud of being one of the founding fathers for the Florida Senior Living Association. They've not only done a lot for the state of Florida, but they've done a lot for me personally. And when I look at all the different folks who are on today's call, I know that they're saying the same thing, that they've been very supported by the Florida Senior Living Association. So not only would I say that the association is fantastic, But if you're not involved in advocacy, you really need to, because you're doing yourself a disjustice.
No, all great things. Plus, I would think as a small operator, being engaged with such a well-known and proactive group, that gives you also some additional recognition as an industry leader, which has to be
Doesn't
beneficial.
hurt.
Doesn't hurt. All right. Last question, short answer. What's one thing that you see for the future of senior living?
So you want a short answer out of that?
What short answer?
Short answer. I don't know. I think we're all hearing there's so many things that's going on. But I will say the shortest answer is there's probably no more exciting time than what we're in right now, right? We've been hearing about this silver tsunami forever. And now we're seeing occupancy numbers we've never seen. Our stakeholders are all excited. So that's exciting. I can definitely see that coming. But wouldn't you agree that what I can see coming is we're going to be a lot more innovative? You're going to see AI, a lot more about AI involved, a lot more technology. And another exciting thing, intergenerational living. You got your seniors, you got your young kids. You're seeing a lot more of that. And then workplace, we're diversifying where we're getting our folks. And so you wanted it short, Aaron. So anyone who knows me, that's another thing I don't do very well. I'm not short, but I'm very excited about what's happening. A lot of technology, a lot of new coming to the workforce. It's a great time. It truly is.
Yeah.
That's what the crystal ball says, Aaron.
Perfect. So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestle. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.